The Mercedes truck lot glimmered under the afternoon sun, like a line of silver giants waiting to be driven. Each vehicle stood proud and polished, as if it knew it was worth more than most people could ever dream of owning. Men in suits walked through the rows, discussing sales numbers and profit margins. A few workers were busy cleaning the vehicles, ensuring every surface shone perfectly. And then he appeared. A ragged man, his clothes torn and dirty, walked into the lot like he belonged there. His shoes were worn down, his hair was messy, and his face was covered with dust and grime. He moved slowly, but with a strange confidence, as if he had walked through worse places than this and survived. The moment he entered, everyone noticed him. The workers stopped what they were doing. The managers froze mid-step. Even the security guard looked up, startled. The ragged man didn't rush. He didn't apologize. He simply walked straight to the first row of trucks and stared at them with a calm intensity that made the air feel colder. "Can I help you?" asked the manager, trying to sound polite but clearly amused. The ragged man turned his head slightly and pointed at the trucks. "I want 5 of those," he said. The manager laughed, loud and clear. "5? You can't even afford a bicycle, let alone a Mercedes truck." The ragged man smiled, but it wasn't a smile of shame. It was a smile of certainty. "I'm not asking for a discount," he replied. "I'm asking for 5 trucks." The manager shook his head. "You must be joking. Those trucks cost more than most people make in 10 years. The workers began whispering. Some were openly laughing. A young salesman even shouted, "Hey man, do you want the trucks or just the seats?" The ragged man didn't flinch. His eyes stayed fixed on the trucks, as if they were already his. "Tell your boss I'm here," he said quietly. The manager stopped laughing. "My boss won't even see you. He doesn't deal with beggars." The ragged man reached into his coat and pulled out a small, worn notebook. It looked like something a homeless person would carry, but the pages were filled with neat writing and numbers. The manager took the notebook and flipped through it. His smile vanished. "What is this?" he asked, voice trembling. The ragged man leaned in close, and for the first time his voice sounded dangerous. "This is the list of what you owe," he said. "And today, I'm collecting." The manager stared at the notebook as if it had burned his hands. The pages were filled with names, dates, and numbers, each one written neatly, as if the writer had time to organize a whole empire of debts. He flipped through more pages, and his laughter began to disappear, replaced by a cold, sinking feeling. "Where did you get this?" the manager asked, barely controlling his voice. The ragged man looked at him calmly. "From the people who stole from you." The manager's eyes narrowed. "You're insane." The ragged man's smile returned, but this time it wasn't friendly. It was confident. It was the smile of someone who knew something others didn't. "Call your boss," he said. "Tell him I'm here. Tell him the one you thought you could ignore has come to collect." The manager stepped back, then turned and walked quickly toward the office building at the back of the lot. He didn't even look back. He was afraid of what the ragged man might say next. Inside the office, the manager slammed the door behind him. His hands shook as he dialed a number. "Boss, we have a problem," he said. "Who?" asked the voice on the other end. "A man. A ragged man. He says he wants 5 trucks." There was a pause on the line. Then the boss's voice came through, calm but sharp. "Send him to me." The manager stared at the phone. "Are you serious?" "Yes," the boss replied. "Send him to me." The manager took a deep breath, then returned to the lot. He walked toward the ragged man slowly, as if approaching a wild animal. The man was still standing where he had left him, staring at the trucks like they were his own. The boss arrived minutes later. He was tall, sharply dressed, and moved with authority. His eyes scanned the lot, then landed on the ragged man. He laughed. "Who are you?" the boss asked, voice full of arrogance. "Do you know how expensive these trucks are?" The ragged man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat and handed the notebook to the boss. The boss flipped through it, and his laughter stopped instantly. "Where did you get this?" he demanded. The ragged man leaned in, his voice low and steady. "From the people who stole from you," he repeated. The boss's face changed. He looked scared, like a man who suddenly realized he had been hiding from his own mistakes. "You're not a thief," the boss whispered. The ragged man nodded. "No, I'm the one you owe." The air in the lot grew heavy, as if the world had paused to watch what would happen next. The boss stood motionless, the notebook still open in his hands. His face was pale, his eyes wide, as if he was trying to convince himself that what he was seeing wasn't real. The ragged man didn't look scared. He looked calm. He looked prepared. The security guards stepped forward, forming a line between him and the trucks. Their uniforms were crisp, their faces stern. They looked like men who had been trained to handle trouble. "Sir," one of them said, "you can't take these trucks. They're not yours." The ragged man nodded slowly. "I know." The guard's eyes widened. The ragged man's answer wasn't a denial. It was a confirmation. The boss took a step forward. "What do you want?" The ragged man pointed at the first truck in the row. "That one." The boss laughed, but it was weak. "You can't just take it." The ragged man took a step closer, then another. He moved like he had done this before. He reached the driver's side door and pulled it open without hesitation. The guard tried to grab him, but the ragged man twisted away, his movements quick and sharp. In one fluid motion, he climbed into the truck. The guard grabbed the door, trying to pull it shut. But the ragged man slammed it closed from the inside. "Stop him!" the boss shouted. The guards rushed toward the truck, but the ragged man was already seated behind the wheel. He turned the key. The engine roared to life. Everyone froze. It shouldn't have been possible. The truck's ignition was supposed to be locked. The keys were supposed to be secured. Yet the engine started like it had been waiting for him. The ragged man grinned and shouted, "Stop me if you can." He shifted into gear and pushed the truck forward. The guards tried to block the path, but the truck moved with power. It pushed past them like they were nothing. The truck rolled forward, leaving the lot with a screeching sound that echoed in everyone's ears. The boss stared at the open gate in shock. The first truck was gone. And the worst part was, the ragged man didn't look back. He didn't need to, because he already knew he was winning. The lot was chaos. People were running in every direction, shouting and pushing. The security guards were stunned, their faces filled with disbelief. The boss stood frozen in the center of the chaos, his mouth open as if he was trying to scream but couldn't find the sound. The first truck had already disappeared down the road, leaving a trail of dust behind it. The second truck was next. The ragged man walked calmly toward the next vehicle, as if nothing had happened. The workers tried to stop him, but he moved with purpose and speed. His hands were steady, his eyes focused. He opened the door, climbed in, and started the engine before anyone could react. The security guards ran after him, but the truck was already rolling. It pushed past them with ease, like it was obeying a command. The boss shouted, "Stop him! Call the police!" But the ragged man had already taken the third truck. And the fourth. By the time the fifth truck was being started, the boss was no longer shouting. He was breathing heavily, his face drained of color. The manager was on his knees, praying silently as if that would change the outcome. No one could stop the ragged man. He seemed to know every weak point in their security system. He knew how to avoid the cameras. He knew which guards were slow. He knew where the gates would open. He knew how to disable alarms. He wasn't just taking trucks. He was dismantling their confidence. People began to understand the truth. The ragged man wasn't desperate. He wasn't a thief. He wasn't crazy. He was precise. He was controlled. And he had planned this for a long time. The boss watched in horror as the fifth truck left the lot, one after another, like a line of soldiers leaving a battlefield. He turned to the manager and asked, "Who is he?" The manager swallowed hard. "I don't know." The boss looked at the notebook again, his hands trembling. The numbers on the pages seemed to move, as if they were alive. He finally understood the true meaning behind the ragged man's words. This wasn't a random theft. This was a message. The boss had ignored the warnings. He had ignored the debts. He had ignored the people he had hurt. And now, the ragged man had come to collect. The boss whispered, "This is our biggest mistake." The ragged man had already driven far away. But the impact of his actions would remain forever.